I went and saw Superman this afternoon, and I'm a guy who really loved when comics got to be mature in the 90s, if you call it mature. Well, let's just say more HBO than kid show sort of a thing, because comics in the 60s to 80s were very designed for kids. And so certain storylines, certain topics weren't really addressed. They were sanitized and washed over due to the whole Dr. Frederick Wertham scandals of the 60s, where he, blamed comics for every social ill. And so then the comic book code came into existence. So then everything twisted after that in the 90s, and then everything had to be gritty, and everything, people got various amounts of hyper violence um, done towards them, or they did towards others, and everything looked like a storyline of The Sopranos, but without any of the intellectual discourse or deeper meaning, other than certain ones like Watchmen and Kingdom Come, uh, the first Dark Knight series. Those ones had some stuff. Sandman was way more a novel than it was an action show for sure. So when I went into this Superman movie, I had heard that it was way more like a callback to the retro comic books of the past. And I was kind of intrigued because we've been getting so many dark takes on superheroes, or just straight up blockbuster action packed fests. The MCU, the DCEU were way more about action and some darker takes in some parts, which I like it because I like Batman as being dark, for example. I find it fun and campy when he's his Adam West self, but um, I still will always kind of reach for a Nolan movie more than I will watch the old 60s Batman show. But I appreciate them both for different reasons. So I went into this kind of going, okay, let me see how I feel about it. And I have to say, it was very balanced. I found that the movie was very topical for today's day and age. I wouldn't call it woke by any means, but I would call it having a soul. I would say that it was very humanist centered. Just like the some of the Superman stories were, some of the best ones I would say are when Superman is just plain silly, or when he's just plain gritty. Neither work. I find he's best when he's like an ideal sort of a character, and this did that. But it also had lots of action. It had some of the retro stuff, and there's spoilers in this part, so please don't watch if you're from now on if you don't want any spoilers. But basically, Superman gets set up to be made into some type of bad guy, and it causes him to call into doubt his own existence and background, and he has to get back to the root of who he was wanting to be, as well as who he was meant to be, and who he saw as his identity. And so I love that inner struggle for him. And I also love the action. There was plenty of action packed scenes, very big callback to old 60s comics with Crypto. I don't think that's a big old, giveaway because of, him being in the trailer. Uh, he fought Ultraman, which was a 90s, I believe, storyline. I'm not the biggest Superman historian, so any Superman fans out there, call me on it. But it had everything. It had a lot of heart. It had a lot of action. It made you kind of root for him and wonder how he was going to get out of it. Now, was everything perfect? No. I think sometimes they zoom through certain parts of their themes a bit too quickly, and uh, sometimes the messaging was subtle, and sometimes it was like a hammer. And I've never been fond of the hammer type of storytelling or theme display. But would I watch it again? I would. And would I tell other people to watch it? I would. I grew up with the Supermans of the 70s and 80s, and Christopher Reeves was, um, my Superman growing up. So I liked this guy. Like, he was good. I liked Henry Cavill. Brandon Routh, I respected what he did, but I was Christopher Reeves all the way. Up until this guy. This guy, he's a strong contender. So go check out Superman. I don't think you'll regret it.